everyone. All right, so I'm going to jump right into our first day of our March minimizing challenge, and my topic for today is magazines. So, how many of you have stacks and stacks of magazines around in your home? I know that magazines played a big part in my life in my earlier years, as a teenager. Of course, I had all my rock magazines, and meaning rock music, not rock geology. And then as I got a little older, became a parent, it was parenting magazines. And then my next phase was writers magazines as I became a writer. And all these magazines, hung around, right? And I want to kind of talk about my experience, particularly with my writers magazines, because I thought you had to have these magazines as part of, I'm a writer, I need to be immersed, and so I must have writers magazines. Now, I was in a very kind of niche area of writing. I wrote for kids and teens, and writers magazines don't really necessarily cater to a very specific genre. So a lot of these magazines came in and they really had no interest for me in whatsoever, and they would stack up, and I'll get to it later, and I would scan the cover and nothing really here, and add it to the stack and add it to the stack. But I had to have these magazines. So, 4 years later, I have 4 years worth of almost unread magazines. That's a huge waste of money. And what messages are you telling yourself that you need these things, to be who you say you are, right? You don't. So when I decided to clear out all these magazines, and I don't recommend you do this, I actually sat down with them and kind of went through them. I did it very quickly, where I, scanned the cover. Was there an article that interested me? I flipped through, but kind of quickly scan the article, because really at this point I know I'm getting rid of the magazines. How much of this information am I really going to retain, right? So I kind of recommend skipping that step. There was probably 2 articles in the whole stack that I ripped out of the magazines that I wanted to keep. Could not tell you today what those articles were about. I have no idea. So again, was it really worth all the time I spent doing that? No. So that's a step I would recommend skipping. Get a box, put your magazines in a box, and think about where best, though, that you could pass them along to, because this is something that can kind of make you feel better about removing them from your home. There's a whole bunch of different places where you can donate your magazines. So you could donate them to a doctor's office, a dentist's office. Are they something that's got really great pictures that you could give them to a daycare or a preschool for kids to cut up for crafts? I actually think that some magazines, because we have the internet now, it's not necessarily a huge thing. I'm thinking these are magazines that we've probably kept for a long time. But it also tells me when you're in the grocery store and you're in the checkout stands and they still have magazines in the aisles, people are still buying them. You're still buying them. So there is still a market for these. If you have a very specific kind of magazine for a specific area, profession, or a specialty hobby, something like that, there could be an association that would appreciate having those magazines and access to those for other people in their membership. So I would recommend something like that. If there's a place where you can send your magazines where they would be appreciated. Of course, you can also donate them to the library. They will usually take magazines. You can donate them to a thrift store where they will also sell used magazines. So that works for you as well. So your challenge today is to dig out those stacks of magazines and that you haven't read, or maybe you have read them. Maybe you're one of those people that actually gets excited and reads your magazine and actually uses their money wisely, that they've spent their money on this magazine, and you read it. And then what do you do with it? Is it unlikely that you read it again? Probably. What do you do with it after you've read it? So you're kind of in the same boat, whether you're reading your magazines and appreciating them, or you're getting your magazines and experiencing guilt that you're spending money and not reading them. Either way, it's time to remove those old magazines from your home. So what do you do moving forward, right? Because you're going to be getting these magazines and now you're removing them from your home. So I would say this is where you need to think intentionally with the money that you're spending on them. Is this something that you're spending money on? The magazine comes in, you're enjoying it, you read it, you spend the time, right? Then that's great, okay? Is there a digital subscription for your magazine that you would consider as an option instead? They're probably a little bit cheaper. You're going to reduce your carbon footprint, right? If you have these magazines coming in, but you're not reading them, you're not appreciating them, they're stacking up, you feel guilty because you're not looking at them, you're not reading them, it is time to cancel those subscriptions. And that's actually part of today's challenge as well. If you choose that for you, it's the right choice to cancel those subscriptions, that's part of today's challenge, is to find the information that you need to go ahead and get those canceled, right? No more wasting your money. So I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of what's in your home. If you find that throughout this challenge, like not everybody collects magazines, not everybody has magazines from the past. If you find throughout this challenge, because it's a micro minimizing challenge and I'm focused in on a very narrow little niche thing each day, you might find that you don't have something in your home for each day, and that's fine. That's fine, because you'll have something in your home for another day, probably most of the days. I think there's but there might be the odd day here and there where this topic just doesn't apply to you, and that's okay. That's fine. Then I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and hopefully we can hit on something then. So let me know in the comments kind of what your magazine journey is, what your thoughts on your magazines. If you're having any concerns or questions or struggling with parting with your magazines and you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out to me. Reach out to me in the comments. You can go through my website, contact me privately. You can DM me on Facebook and Instagram. By all means, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. Okay, have a great day.